In the opening scene of the Doctor Who TV movie, the 8th Doctor elaborates on the events that led to his regeneration from the 7th Doctor into his current incarnation, recalling that the Daleks put the Master on trial on Skaro, before honouring his request to allow the Doctor to transport his remains back to Gallifrey. The scene depicts the Master standing trial before being sentenced to extermination and disintegrated, which seems odd for several reasons. Why would the Daleks utilise a trial? And what exactly were they putting the Master on trial for in the first place? Most sources suggest that the reason why the Daleks chose to execute the Master wasn't due to his nature as a being of chaos or for the destruction he had caused throughout the universe, but was actually due to a simple, singular reason: betrayal. Many years prior, the Master had allied with the Daleks in an attempt to cause a war between humanity and the neighbouring Draconian Empire, before the scheme was derailed by the 3rd Doctor. The Master abandoned the Daleks, which eventually led to the loss of the Supreme Dalek, their base on Spyridon, and an entire army of Daleks held in suspended animation there. As a result, the Daleks declared the Master to be an enemy of their race and vowed to destroy him. On behalf of the Parliament of the Daleks, the Dalek litigator oversaw the Master's trial. The Master was impassive as his long list of crimes was read out, and the Dalek Emperor judged the Master to be guilty and sentenced him to death. The execution was carried out by the Dalek Prelature, a group of specialised Daleks who spoke in a distorted, higher-pitched voice. However, before his death, the Master made his final request. There are conflicting accounts on why exactly the Daleks honoured his request. Some sources indicated that the Daleks themselves were not involved, and that the Master telepathically contacted the 7th Doctor to ask him to return his remains to Gallifrey, which he then did by sneaking into the Dalek Bastion. However, the 8th Doctor later seemed to be under the impression that the Daleks had granted the request themselves. Another theory suggests that the entire trial was a result of a Dalek Time Lord treaty that existed in the era before the Time War, which allowed the Daleks to carry out the execution but stipulated that they needed to grant the Master's final request. Regardless for the reasons behind the trial, it turned out to be a failure for the Daleks. The Master had planned for his death and survived as a Deathworm morphant before eventually claiming a new body. The Dalek litigator, who was actually the Dalek time controller, discovered this and attempted to enforce his death sentence, but had to flee via an emergency temporal shift when the Master outmatched it. However, the Dalek's death sentence for the Master endured for many years, until the Supreme Dalek of Dalek control on Skaro finally carried out the sentence, or so it thought, when it ordered the maximum extermination of Missy. What do you think of the Master's trial? Do you think the Daleks actually gave the Master a fair trial, out of respect for their former ally? Or do you think that the entire thing was a facade to satisfy a false treaty with the Time Lords? Let me know in the comments below.
Don't forget to click below to subscribe to
Dalek Bumps.